Welcome to the Ohio State University Extension's Direct Food and Agricultural Marketing Team's Marketing Matters. Today we're going to talk about identifying your target market.
Hey, welcome back. I'm Patrick Dangle, and it's always a pleasure to be able to co-host, if you want to call it that, with somebody that really has a great understanding about food marketing, direct marketing, agriculture. I think Christie has done a lot of different unique things here at the Ohio State University South Centers. And Christie Welch is a direct ag marketing specialist, and she's been with the Ohio State University for 18 years. Is that correct?
Yes, Patrick, that is.
And you've done a variety of different things involved with markets and foods and things of that nature. And today, it's my understanding you're going to tell the listening audience about identifying your target markets.
Yes, Patrick, and thank you for having me here today. I did think it would be a good topic just to talk about what is your target market and how do you figure out who they are? You know, the world is moving very quickly. The way we get the word out about our products and services is changing very quickly with the advent of and continued growth of social media and the rapid changes with that. And so one of the benefits of identifying your target market is to help you figure out where your customers are and how you can best communicate with them. So I thought we'd share some tips on that today.
If I can just share one thing, I think it's very, very true what you say, because we can spend a lot of time, a lot of money on customers that may not necessarily buy more than just a few items. So I think you're right on with what you're saying.
Well, that's a great point, Patrick. As you mentioned, I've been here at the South Centers for a number of years, and most of that time I've spent working with small businesses of all different kinds. And it's always interesting when I meet with a small business and ask them who their customer is, and they're like, everybody's my customer. Well, you know, that's probably not true.
Especially the little baby that's crawling in.
Exactly. And so to take some time to identify who your most likely customer is, and then use your limited resources to attract that customer and help them know about your product is really beneficial.
I think that's extremely important because marketing is advertisement dollars.
Absolutely.
But it's not the same.
It's not the same. And of course, as I mentioned, small businesses have typically limited budgets. We don't have unlimited amounts of money to spend on attracting our customers. And I'll back up here one slide. And again, if you identify your target market, one of the things that helps you do is reduce that cost of acquiring those customers. And so the more efficient we can be with the resources that we do have, that really gets that business off on a good start. And it can help us then to determine how we're going to go about communicating with those customers.
So where do you really begin? I mean, where's the place where you need to start focusing in on?
Well, one of the easiest things you can do is to think about the demographic information, and that's that information that, you know, how old is your target customer? Are they male or female? What are their income levels, their education levels? Where do they live? All those things can go into really helping you figure out then again how those folks get their information and then how you can best communicate with them. And this demographic information, there are many resources available to help you gather that. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, the census information is a great place to start. And so based on your geographic location, you can figure out how many potential customers are in that geographic location.
Now, one of the things that I found that since we are human beings, we are those individuals that also have certain kinds of interests and certain kinds of things. You know, what about that?
Yeah, that's a great question too, Patrick. And that's a little bit of that information that can be a little bit more difficult to acquire. And that's what we typically call psychographic demographic information. So it's the things about what do your customers value and what are they interested in and what are their lifestyles. So I work a lot with local food producers throughout Ohio. And one of the interests of the customers of local foods is not only supporting small businesses, but they want access to fresh, healthy, locally produced foods. So that tells us a lot about our target customer right there.
Yeah, that does make an interesting way of looking at things. So let's just suppose you acquire a better understanding of who your customers might be, and you think there's certain kinds of lifestyles and certain kinds of interests. What now?
So you would take that information and then develop a kind of a profile of your target customer. And I just wanted to share with you really quickly, when you're thinking about that profile, what your ideal customer, again, this won't be every single one, but kind of what's the majority of the folks look like that are likely to be your customers. And so they're going to be things, again, about trying to put some of that information down on paper as far as age, income level. Do they have kids? Do they not have kids? Are they interested in healthy foods? And all those kinds of things go into that. And here's just an example that we can work through. So when we look at the demographics, let's say moms with kids that are pre-K through middle school. And so what do those moms value? Well, they value a kid-friendly environment, right? They want to educate their kids in a fun and exciting way. They want to feed their kids healthy food, and they also want meals that are easy to prepare. Let's face it, moms are busy. We're all busy, but moms with young kids especially are very busy. And so
they
if
get
you
3 hours of sleep a night.
Exactly. So if you can meet those demands of that target customer, wow, win-win for everybody, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I did want to just point out that Shift is a project done by the American Hort Initiative through American Hort, and their website is here on the screen. But they did a nationwide study to help try to come up with some customer profiles, and I'm not going to go through all these, but they even gave their customers a name and really talked about what was the motivation for that person to purchase. So, for example, this is Do It All Allison, and supporting a cause with purchase is very important to Allison. And then things that will keep Allison coming back are that excellent experience in retail. You know, we've all had those bad experiences, right?
Yeah.
But we really want to have that excellent experience when we have a interaction with a business.
So what do you mean support a cause with the purchase?
So that's a great question, Patrick. So, you know, especially with the millennial generation, if you do some research about that generation, they're very interested in being part of a bigger, maybe the greater good would be a way to say that. They want to leave this planet better than it was when they got here. And so if you, especially if you're in the food business, if you can share with those millennials that you are doing sustainable agricultural production and making sure that you're preserving and conserving our natural resources, that can be really impactful for that millennial generation.
And then you also said something about buying locally. You know, let's face it, some of our grocery stores have just about everything that we would really want. And sometimes you get the impression that if you buy local, you're going to spend more.
That is true. I mean, sometimes you do have that impression. I would say that that's not necessarily the case. The research has really shown that typically locally produced food, whether you're purchasing it at a farmer's market or at your farm market or at a local grocery store, that the prices are very comparable to the larger grocery stores. And of course, the benefits of producing local food is it's typically fresher, and so you're not going to have as much waste. It tastes better. But again, one of the benefits, and the research shows this as well, is supporting those local farmers and making sure that the bulk of those dollars spent on that local food go back to the farmer, as opposed to a very small amount of the dollar going to the farmer when it comes from all over the globe.
That's interesting. And then when you say eating healthy, you know, there's a lot of discussion that I've heard about certain kinds of growing, organic versus non-organic versus different things of that nature. How do you really know that you're eating healthy? I mean, maybe I'm asking.
Well, I'm not a nutritionist, but I do work with produce quite a bit. And so there's been a tremendous amount of research that shows just eating more fresh fruits and vegetables is good for us. And so when you have the opportunity to purchase let's say a locally raised peach, wow, the flavor is so much better than if that peach came from halfway around the globe.
Yeah, that's true.
And so when you have a better quality product, typically that makes us consume more of that.
Yeah, and I noticed that this is the season during the summer months when strawberries come on, and I know that when we've acquired strawberries from local producers, the quality is really great.
It makes a big difference on where the product is produced, and so each farmer has different considerations they have to think about. If I'm a strawberry grower and I'm looking at shipping strawberries from Florida or California into Ohio, well, I can't wait till that strawberry is completely ripe, because through the transportation process, by the time it gets here, it would be mush. And so, again, the benefit of purchasing locally is there's a shorter time from the time that product is harvested until it gets into the consumer's hands. So typically, locally produced foods can be harvested right at the peak of ripeness, and so that makes a difference as well.
So let's just suppose we're millennials, we're like Allison there. How could we sort of find, where would Allison be looking for? Where would she...
You mean how to get her to your business or your... So Allison, again, is very interested in her community, and so she's going to be really involved in community events. So if there are other organizations within your community that you could partner with, so you could work with... a lot of local foods right now are in restaurants, or they're working with local craft breweries. You can also, Allison's going to find you, of course, online, whether you have a website or you're on social media sites that Allison might be on.
That makes sense.
And then Main Street locations as well. Again, she's very interested in supporting the community.
And I know that there are a number of different farmer markets, because you helped many of those become sustainable. But what about during the winter time when they're, is there still products available?
That's a good question, Patrick. And so we're getting better here in Ohio. Again, based on our climate, it's difficult to grow fresh produce year-round, although we have many growers here in Ohio that are season extending, so they can grow either earlier in the season or later in the season. We have farmers markets that actually go year-round.
Really?
And so those products that are more stable, shelf-stable or otherwise, for example, we have a lot of proteins, beef and chicken and pork, that are raised in Ohio, and of course most of that product is refrigerated or frozen, and so it keeps, so you can still go to your farmer's market year-round and get that. There's also some growers that are using aquaponics or hydroponic production and doing some leafy greens and those kinds of things year-round, so there is an opportunity, but you certainly want to try to keep Allison engaged with your business.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And I also know that Ohio Proud is around many of the grocery stores where Ohio products can be there.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming that winter crops and winter food might be available.
Absolutely, yes. And so the Ohio Proud program is through the Department of Agriculture here in Ohio, and it's another tool to help you communicate with your potential customer that that product is grown in Ohio. So another opportunity for you.
But also, it seems to me that people like Allison are very active in community organizations too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Again, supporting that community. So if you have Main Street organizations in your downtown and those kinds of events, Allison is very interested in those, and that's another way to reach out to Allison and keep her engaged with your particular business. Now, this is another example from the Shift project, again done by American Hort. And so this is, again, they've named their customer, retired Rana, and Rana purchases for memories. And so a lot of times, you know, one of the questions on that demographic information was, did that customer either have kids or do they have grandkids? And of course, I think grandparents are a great way to get customers into your business because they want to share the experiences they had as a child with their grandchildren. And so it's a great way to help connect with Rana and have her bring her grandchildren out to your Pick Your Own or your agritourism operation. And she, again, is very involved in her community as well. So if you have community newsletters or newspapers, word of mouth, again, local garden clubs is a great way to reach out to her, as well as those community events that happen.
I know that some organizations where there are more senior individuals, you know, sometimes they have little cook-offs or little social events where people bring in unique plates of food and things of that nature.
Yep.
And I know that there's always a passion for plants when it comes to some senior citizens.
Absolutely. Yep.
So.
And that's a great point here, Patrick. Again, the American Hort Association really serves the floriculture and nursery businesses here in Ohio and throughout the country. And so a lot of the work that they did really focused on independent garden centers and getting people excited about plants and growing plants. So that's why it's kind of this focus. But there's really a lot of crossover because we are growing plants to get the food typically and then help educating our customers on what to do with those products.
You know, there was also a push with the Ohio State University, with many of other programs. You know, sometimes there's a vacant lot in the city, and sometimes if it's a safe environment, people get together and they plant different kinds of food.
That's true, exactly. And not only Ohio State University and Extension throughout the state, we have many other organizations throughout the state that are working on developing community gardens as a way to build communities, as a way to, again, increase the access to healthy food, to teach really useful skills to the people that participate in that. So that's another opportunity as well.
And there are many retired Ranas. I don't see any retired Ranos, but you know, I know my wife enjoys her little garden, and when the tomatoes come out or the parsley or whatever, you know, she's just a little twinkle in her eye.
Oh yeah, it's great, and of course it's a great healthy activity.
Yeah.
So, and you know, if we grow that item, we're much more likely to consume it because we've had that experience and satisfaction of growing that item. So that's, again, another win-win.
And so those individuals are also susceptible to the fresh fruits and vegetables.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Huh.
Yep.
So I find this, so what you're saying is there's demographics and psychographics, buying motivation, communications, keeping the theme of coming back. So what you're looking at is you're sort of developing what?
Really, it's a customer profile for your target customer, and this is just a little handout that we put together to help you walk through that process. I think when we start talking about identifying your customer and we talk about getting the demographics and the psychographics, it can be a little bit overwhelming. You know, we usually get into the production because we love to grow things. We don't want to market, you know, that's kind of secondary.
Well, people will just come. Build it and you'll be there.
Yeah, so we hope this is a tool that is not overwhelming to people. And so on the left-hand side here, again, if you have one or two target customers that you can identify those demographics for that particular customer, tie that to their interest. Again, those psychographics are their interest and their values and how you can help meet those needs of that customer. What causes them to buy in the first place?
Yeah.
And that's different a lot of times for different folks. Is it, again, supporting the local business? Is it, again, access to that healthy, locally produced food? You will communicate in a little bit different manner with each of those different customers.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And now always the question is, how do you get that information based on the customer profile?
Mm-hmm.
And here's a list that you put out.
Yeah, again, so we were talking about one of the benefits of figuring out how your customers get their information and what's important to them goes back to the fact, again, that as small businesses, we typically have limited resources. So where are we going to use those resources? A lot of times that's money, dollars, to attract our potential customer. Years ago, you could put an ad in a local newspaper. It would run once in your local community, and it would cost you $200 and $250 to run that ad one time. Well, as you know, we very rarely read actual physical newspapers much anymore. A lot of that is done online, and many news outlets have online formats. But if you took that same $250 that you ran that ad one time, and you put that towards either developing a website or doing some advertising on social media, the research shows that as social media goes, Facebook is still the one where the largest majority of people on the planet are interacting. Now that is changing, and it changes over time, but you can really do a great amount of advertising and promotions on Facebook for $250 and be very effective.
Just to sort of follow up, we have a client that when they started with their Facebook, what they would have is a puzzle per day. It's just a small puzzle. And then whoever got the most puzzles got a bag of coffee. Mm-hmm. And so there they were proactive in using Facebook.
Absolutely. And as I mentioned earlier, Patrick, with a seasonal business like growing food here in Ohio, you have a couple months where maybe you don't have product to sell to that customer. And there was a producer here in Ohio, and this has been a number of years ago. We had a really, really cold, miserable winter, and they had a couple of pigs on their farm, and they did this whole story on Facebook about their pigs have run away. Can you please help us find our pigs? Well, the pigs were in Florida on the beach enjoying the warm weather and getting out of Ohio with the cold winter. But again, just a creative way to keep your customers involved with your business so they don't forget about you over that time.
That's very good. In developing, once you have all that information, you're now ready, I think, to develop sort of a market plan. Should a market plan be for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, or should it be a short period of time?
Well, that's a great question, Patrick, and I think that's going to vary a little bit for every type of business. I will say from my experience, again, working with farmers and local food producers, that's one of those things that we tend to put off. And so my suggestion is do it for this year and do that in January, February, March, your slow season. So when you're crazy busy working 16 hours a day, you already know what you're going to do and how you're going to reach out to your customers. And so here's another example of a very simple one-page marketing plan that we hope will be very useful for producers. And so here's just an example. We know our target customer is that 25 to 35-year-old lady with children. And the product or service that we used in this example is a U-Pick operation. What's the competitive advantage? And if you remember, we talked about people with kids wanting a safe, healthy environment for their kids, but that is also fun and exciting. you pick operation, fills the bill right there. But how are you going to get to those moms and those kids? One of the things that I've also learned, if you are a mom with kids, you are connected to other moms with kids in your community.
Yeah, that's true.
And so
That's true.
many of them have groups on Facebook or other social media sites, newsletters, get-togethers, all those kinds of things. And so that's how you would want to promote to that group. What's your goal? And so again, in this example, our goal was just to increase sales on weekdays by 10%. So what does that mean? I have a history. I know what my sales were on weekdays last year or the years before, so that I
Good
can
point.
measure that.
Good point.
And then how do you measure your success? Again, sales on weekdays and likes on Facebook. And we're going to spend $25. So we're going to spend $5 a week for 5 weeks on promoting on Facebook. Now, you can, again, sit down and do that in January or February or March when it's not your crazy busy time of year, and then have that plan ready to go.
You know, one of the things that I've seen is that once you've worked your plan, oftentimes we're relieved that we developed this, and on the shelf it goes.
Well, and that's why I think we've developed this one-pager that we hope people can just carry around with them, put it on your refrigerator or on the bulletin board in your office, so that you can keep that front and center, and we don't have this beautiful binder notebook that we set on the shelf and never look
that's
at.
a very good point. Very good point. Christie, you have provided a lot of things. Again, you're the direct ag marketing specialist at the Ohio State University Cell Centers. Who are the individuals you would like to work with? Who would you like to have call you?
Well, I appreciate that question, Patrick. And so we really focus on helping those folks in Ohio that grow food, whether, again, it's protein, whether it's grains, whether it's fruits and vegetables. And we even help with agritourism operations as well, so people coming out.
Agritourism?
Yeah, and we did that's where people come out. You combine kind of tourism activities with farm
okay.
activities, and so help those folks as well. But if we can be a resource for you to help you be a more effective marketer, to help you better position yourself in your market and communicate with your customers, our goal really is that you be sustainable financially.
And I think you have on the screen there also a website that an individual can go to and see additional information.
Absolutely, and we are in the process of updating our website, but these resources will all be available there for you to check out.
And you're very easy to get in touch with. All you have to do is call 289-2071, and then your extension is
234.
234.
Yep.
Or, you know, I've seen where you've also been able to take text messages and email messages. So do people have to wait from 8 to 5 on weekdays?
No, they can reach out anytime. Email actually is best because we're not in the office a lot. We're out meeting with farmers around the state. So email is the best way to reach out to me, and I'll get back with you just as quickly as I can. And happy to help.
Well, very good. Very good. I want to thank you, Christie, for presenting a really good marketing tool. I want to thank behind the scenes Dwayne Rigsby and also Sarah Swanson, who is making this production available to you all. Christie, I know that on the 3rd or the 4th week of each month, you come on and you talk about direct ag marketing, things of that nature. So really appreciate your coming on.
Thanks, Patrick. Happy to be here.